The Irishman is directed by Martin Scorsese and stars Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino, and follows the life of Frank Sheeran, a truck driver who may or may not have had some involvement with the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. I was really excited for this movie, purely and simply because it is directed by Martin Scorsese. Now, I don't have to explain myself on that one, because the guy is a genius when it comes to filmmaking, and throughout his entire career, he's never made, at least in my personal opinion, he has yet to make a single bad film. Every movie he's made has been good, if not great. And the best thing about his career is that even though some of his movies may be structurally or stylistically a little bit similar, every movie he makes is pretty much completely different from the last. For example, Hugo is completely different to Silence, The Wolf of Wall Street is completely different to Goodfellas, and The Irishman is another one of those movies in his career. It feels very familiar, yet has enough different things going on that it kind of stands as its own unique thing that he is yet to pull off in his career. And I've got to say, The Irishman is yet another great film to add to his filmography, because I enjoyed every single minute of this movie. And that's saying something, especially considering how long this movie is, but I'll get onto that in a little bit. First up, I have to talk about the performances. Everyone in this movie brings their A game, and that's saying something considering you have pretty much a shitload of A-listers in this film. You've got Robert De Niro playing Frank Sheeran, and he's really, really good in this movie. He conveys a lot of emotion in this movie just through his facial expression or the way he looks. Because usually nowadays in film, you're used to someone kind of telling you how they feel, whereas in this movie there's a lot of just distant or blank expressions that are left open for interpretation in terms of how he is feeling, and there are a lot of scenes where you're just solely relying on the look that Robert De Niro is giving on his face to pretty much explain how he is feeling in said scenes, and I think it works really well here. That, and also the fact that any scene that he is in with Joe Pesci, who plays Russell, is absolutely brilliant, and it's really nice to see Joe Pesci in a movie like this again, because as far as I'm aware, he came out of retirement just to be in this movie, and I haven't seen him in a film since, well, Home Alone 2 or Goodfellas, and it's really nice to see him doing what he does best again, because I've kind of missed him being in films. But no, Joe Pesci brings his A game to this film, and he really is so good in this movie that he's one of those characters where if you're on his good side, he's a really likable character, but then if you get just ever so slightly on his bad side, he could completely fuck your life up. And that switch between the two is really noticeable in this movie, and I loved everything he did with that performance. Al Pacino is also really great in this movie as he plays Jimmy Hoffa, and I thought he was fantastic in almost every single scene he was in. And I'm quite surprised to find out that this is his first collaboration with Scorsese. You would think over the many years both of them have been working, you would have thought at some point they would have worked together, but apparently this is the first time they have worked on a project together, and it shows because they really do work so well together when put in the right project, and Al Pacino makes every moment last in this film, especially the moments where he's able to kind of go full on and really over-exaggerate certain things and just go really over the top in his performance, and I love it when he does that in movies. If you've seen Heat, you'll know exactly what I'm on about.
Because she got a great ass, and you got your head all the way up it.
But yeah, he was fantastic in this movie, and also a lot of the supporting cast were great as well. And as an avid follower of Martin Scorsese's projects throughout the years, it's really nice to see a lot of actors from his TV-oriented projects such as Broadwalk Empire or Vinyl. It's nice to see a lot of those actors crop up in this movie, such as Ray Romano, Bobby Cannavale, and of course Stephen Graham. Stephen Graham is one of the most underrated actors working today, I'm just saying. Every performance I see of him is like better than the last one, and that's saying something considering that every performance he gives is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, he really does deliver in this movie, and everyone delivers. I suppose my only nitpick when it comes to performances or screen time in that sense is that Anna Paquin, who plays an older version of Robert De Niro's daughter, doesn't get that much screen time. And I wouldn't really care that much if it wasn't such an integral arc in the emotional personality of Robert De Niro's character. It's such an important emotional arc for his character, yet you don't really see much of her character, therefore that arc kind of feels a little bit empty, in my opinion. I do think the point of it is conveyed by the end of the film, but I just would have liked one or two more scenes with her character just to make that arc fully realised in its best form. Oh, and in regards to the de-aging stuff that they do for the actors, yeah, it's a little bit noticeable at first, but after a couple of scenes you just kind of get used to it, and it's actually really bloody impressive. There's a lot of shots where Joe Pesci looks like a young Joe Pesci, or De Niro looks like a really young De Niro, and it's just really impressive, especially with some of the scenes and how they play out and how technically intricate they are, especially in regards to how well they're shot. The fact that they're able to make that de-aging thing look as convincing as it is amongst these intricate looking like long takes is really impressive. Now, the one thing that people are talking about the most about this movie is the runtime. It's 3.5 hours long, and yes, that can seem very daunting at first, but I've got to be honest, even though there are times in the film where you can kind of feel that 3-hour runtime kick in, I was thoroughly fascinated and engaged throughout the entire thing, and that's also even more saying something considering that a lot of the movie is just people talking. Yes, you do have scenes of violence and, you know, some really tense scenes, especially towards the end, but the majority of the movie is just people sitting down and talking to each other, or just a lot of montages explaining how certain things got from point A to point B. And it's pretty much Scorsese doing what he did in Goodfellas, but a lot more refined and restrained, to the point where it feels more polished than Goodfellas in a sense. If you've seen the movie, you kind of know what I mean, but it kind of feels a lot more, you know, focused and restrained than Goodfellas was, and I really did appreciate that about this movie, which kept me engaged throughout its 3.5 hour long runtime. Also, as entertaining as the mafia-related stuff is in this movie, I actually found one of the more interesting and more powerful moments to come actually right at the end of the movie when you see Frank as an old man. I won't say anything else if you haven't seen the film, but I just thought it really, really worked for me, and the emotional resonance of that scene, specifically one of the last shots of the film, really hits home and kind of ends up delivering a completely different theme and message than maybe what was conveyed at the start of the movie. Because at the start of the film, you kind of think, okay, I'm kind of getting into my regular Scorsese cliches here. But then by the end of the film, Scorsese delivers you a completely new message, and it really does hit if you know exactly what you're looking for. In the end, The Irishman is a thoroughly entertaining movie that can feel a tad slow at times, but never completely drags the movie down because of it. But no, it is a thoroughly entertaining movie with fantastic performances. I suppose if I had to nitpick in the movie, I would say that the passage of time in certain bits towards the start of the film is a little unclear. because it will kind of cut from one scene to another, and you're not sure whether you're still in the same time period or whether they've jumped forwards or backwards in time. It gets a little bit clearer the more the movie goes on, because it kind of sticks in a certain time period of Frank's life for a long period of time, and then will then cut to the next, and then cut to the next. But in those first few scenes, it's a little bit unclear because it just bounces back and forth all the time, and you're a little bit unsure how old he's supposed to be, or how far or how early in these people's lives we are currently in, because there's no indication of it, and it just kind of feels a little unclear at first. But like I said, it does get a lot clearer the more the movie goes on. Apart from that though, I will happily give The Irishman an 8.5 out of 10. This is definitely proof that Scorsese still knows what he's doing, and he's just a master of his craft at this point. He's yet to make a bad movie, and The Irishman is proof that he can still make fantastic films. So guys, that was my review for The Irishman. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye!